The teaching of Thomas Jefferson, who emphasized so much human rights in the context of the world in which we live today, and in which the responsibility of the 6 or 7 billion of us on earth will determine whether our grandchildren will even be around to have rights or not, is something that I think that has to be brought up on every occasion. If we do not fulfill our responsibilities towards God's creation, 3 generations from now there will be no human beings to practice their human rights. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that, and anybody who tells you otherwise is fooling you. Unfortunately, this is the truth that cannot be avoided. And this, of course, also works for government. And here's the question whether the government can impose religion upon human beings. This is a very complicated question. Thomas Jefferson, of course, the whole American experience rebels against this. Europe did not do that for a long, long time. Many European countries, like Great Britain, still have an official church. The emperor, the queen, or the king of Britain is the head of the Anglican church, but not everybody goes to church. Only 9% of people go to church. And you have a very, very complicated situation in the Islamic world also. It isn't that every government is an Islamic government. Many people in the West think this is the case. In fact, today in the Islamic world, there are very few Islamic governments. Most of them have names which are Muslim names, but they're not Islamic. Most of them are agents of other powers. That's why you have revolutions and upheavals once in a while going on. The two should not be confused, but theoretically, in the Islamic State, where the majority of people are Muslims, the government should be Islamic in the sense of preserving Islamic laws for the Muslim majority and permitting non-Muslim minorities to preserve their laws. That's what happened most of the time in the Ottoman Empire, in the Persian Empire, the Christian Jews or Assyrians and the like. And vice versa, when Muslims are a minority, they must follow the law of the land, like they're here in America, Europe, but try to preserve their own personal religious laws, like they do prayers or things like that. Finally, one last point, my time is up. Jefferson always talks about the importance of not being coercive in religion and having religious liberty. A verse of the Quran says, La ikraha fi din. There is no coercion in religion. That's a verse of the Quran, the sacred scripture of Islam. In principle, you cannot force a person to become a Muslim. And this has been true of most of Islamic history. There have been occasional exceptions. When Christianity never did that, of course. Also there are exceptions in Christianity. What happened to the Druidic religions? What happened to all the Druidic priests or Celtic religions of Northern Europe? I will not talk about that. But that in every religion there have been episodes, there have been epochs. But the principle of the freedom of religion is extremely important in the sense that without freedom of conscience, the selection of a religion or worship or faith is meaningless in the eyes of God. From the theological point of view for Islam as it is for Christianity. That is, if your faith is based on coercion, it's not real faith. If you worship because you're afraid of your father or the soldier standing with a bayonet, but your heart is not in it, that is not accepted. That's not real worship. This is something which, much more than people think, in fact, unifies Islamic, Christian, and Jewish, and other religious points of view. Because religion has no value if there's not freedom of choice, no matter what it is. It's different from when you have a whole society is religious, whether it's Confucian China, or Abbasid Baghdad, or Iraq, or Hindu India, or Christian medieval West, when everybody's Christian, everybody's Hindu, and religion and government, everything together, and opposition and leaving a religion, apostasy, is considered as treason. The Islamic world is oftentimes criticized that they do not allow people to convert easily to Christianity, and therefore there's no freedom of religion. This is totally nonsense, because they do not consider the fact that 90% of the children of the richest and most powerful people in Pakistan go to Christian schools, to missionary schools. And when Pakistan was divided, there were 100,000 Christians there, now there are 3 million. I have to say nothing more. What would happen, I always say, if in Texas the children of all the wealthy and influential people went to Islamic schools. What would the people of Texas do? The opposition to so-called religious freedom in that sense is a political, economic situation which has been created. Otherwise, the idea of free, apostasy was only treated as punishable with death when it was equated with treason. It was same in France in the time of Cardinal Richelieu. If Richelieu had become a Muslim, he would have been hanged immediately. Because at that time, to go against the religion of the state was considered as treason. But in modern times, this has changed quite a bit. Even that, because there's no really Islamic government in that sense, to go against it, you're treason against the state. In every Islamic country, there are many people who left Islam, who become Baha'is or Christian, a few Christians. Missionary activity in Indonesia has converted 10% of the Indonesian people to Christianity, and they're doing very well in the streets. Once in a while, there are riots here and there. That's not that at all. It's another that can occur in any society. The only place where there's a flashpoint is in Black Africa, actually, both in the Sudan and Nigeria, for other political reasons that are not purely religious. But the idea that Thomas Jefferson brings out of the liberty and freedom of religion is something which Islamic thinkers would agree with completely. How in society various governments have dealt with it, we've had such a variegated picture that it's not possible to make judgment that Christianity says this, Islam says this. They've all said many different things in different contexts, in different political situations. I think Thomas Jefferson should be studied much more in the Islamic world. He's a very significant thinker, intellectual figure, besides being a founding father of America. And I think his voice will be much more important in the future when thought about more deeply in the relationship between America and the Islamic world. Thank you.
Dear friends, this is billed as a conversation, and the definition of conversation is that it's guided by the question, whereas argument is guided by the answer. I have an answer, I must defend it, I must defeat, or whatever. If you are conversing, you put out a bid and something comes back, and it can lead in many surprising directions, and that's what we're doing tonight. And the questions that were posed to both of us have been, what in the Jefferson Statute is an inconvenience to or a problem for your tradition, Islam or Christianity? What contributions did your religion make to it, or how would it find congenial or whatever? And where are the points of relation? We have a preliminary problem with this conversation, however. If you took it outside of this city and this hall and this area and this tradition, you'd find what I find in Illinois when I say I'm going to Virginia to talk about the Virginia Statute. Oh, it ends there. At a little reception tonight, somebody said, we really should make the point, this is probably one of the most significant contributions of this city to the world. You're too modest. I've written books that say that from 313 until 1785 and 6, nothing like this happened. Anywhere. This is an epochal event, and the more you study it, the more you can realize the assumptions behind it are at the heart of almost every debate we have today about freedom of the will and conscience and what's often called separation of church and state. So, one of the things we do each of these years here is learn something about what's in it. I heard the story of two people approaching an old town in the 19th century, and a man running toward them. He had just been tarred and feathered, spitting away and fuming away and boiling away and steaming away in that indignity that's shown him and the suffering. And somebody said, why did they do this to you? Oh, we had an argument. What was it about? Well, it was about the Monroe Doctrine. Well, what's at issue? I told him I believe in the Monroe Doctrine. I love the Monroe Doctrine. I would die for the Monroe Doctrine. I just haven't the faintest idea what it is.